I just think that when you open up the door to teamwork, you never really know when you share responsibilities in a new way that you haven't before, whether we're talking about money, whether we're talking about driving the kids around, whether it's whatever help, whatever it is, you open up room for each other to gain confidence, to step into completely different roles and opportunities for them and really take a load off of you and build what feels closer to an equitable partnership. Like it may be a secondary thing. Like money could just be the first thing. Then it opens up the door to so much more.
Money is always one of those subjects that is incredibly triggering. We know this, right? And yet it's kind of like nutrition. It's one of those things that we need to educate ourselves about, that we need to master. And yet culturally, for some reason, it's not a high priority. So I'm all about living in alignment with how you want to feel. And money is one of those tools. I talk a lot about time management, energy management, living, working, parenting in alignment with how you want to feel. And to be radically honest, money is one of those things that we need to give a shit about. And this is really why I'm excited to share with you today's interview with Heather and Douglas Boneparth. And I'm probably saying their names incorrectly, and that secretly traumatizes me. But I'm going to read their bio. I'm going to talk a little bit about this episode, and then we're going to dive right in. So Heather and Douglas Boneparth are co-authors of Money Together: How to Find Fairness in Your Relationship and Become an Unstoppable Financial Team. By day, Douglas is a certified financial planner and the founder of the Bonafide Wealth in New York City. Heather spent more than a decade as a corporate lawyer before joining the firm as the director of business and legal affairs. They also co-write a weekly newsletter. It's called The Joint Account, which helps couples talk about money. So I loved this conversation. I also love them talking a little bit about their kind of journey through their financial wealth relationship, and how it doesn't matter how much education you have under your belt. On paper, it can look really, really good. If you don't do the inside work and you don't do the couple work, it's really going to eat away at the foundation of your relationship. So we talked a lot about, connection, the importance of understanding your numbers, but also more of like an emotional aspect, having those emotionally uncomfortable conversations. And I asked Douglas a few questions about men and how to engage in these conversations with them, because I think as a woman, we often, and I know not everyone is in this type of relationship or even has these same belief systems, but I do see that a lot of women have kind of outsourced their power, thinking, he takes care of the money. But I do believe it's something really, really important. If we want men to take more childcare responsibilities, we want them to come over to our side in what is a typical gender role, then we have to be willing to do the exact same thing on their side as well. And it doesn't mean that we have to do it all, but we need to be able to look at things that make us emotionally uncomfortable, to ask those questions and to get radically honest. Are you protected for the future? Are you, do you have a plan in place if something doesn't work out? And keep asking questions. And it's okay if it makes other people uncomfortable. You don't need to solve everything in one conversation. So go grab a copy of their book, Money Together, read through it yourself. Start engaging conversations with those you care about. And I just truly believe the more empowered we are, the more we, have the conversations that our parents didn't have with us or our grandparents, the more we can empower the next generation. So let's dive in.
My question for you is your new book. Everyone, when I wrote my book, people were like, well, you wrote a book, you put blood, sweat, and tears into it. And then no one's going to read it, or they're going to read the first chapter. And it's, and then, now I got to do an audio book to get people to read my book. So it's like we have to sell people on the value of why you need to read this book. How do you want the listener, the reader to feel when they are on the last page of your book? What do you want them to walk away with?
We want them to be motivated to have better conversations with their spouse about money. We want them to be curious about their partners and to be hopeful that there is a better path forward than whenever they began this process, because money is complex, it's icky, it's sensitive, and nobody wants to talk about it. And those that do are usually not talking about it the right way. And so we hope that by the end of it, you feel a little more seen. Your partner feels a little more seen. And if you don't, you're confident that we can open up those conversations for you. And I think the book will do that for a lot of people.
So I was saying before we hit record that I wanted my husband to be on this as well. And I'm recovering from something. You can hear it in my voice. He went down for the count yesterday. He's like, do you still need me to be on there? I said, no, honey, you do not need to attend the call today. So money is one of those things that people just consider it as an afterthought, right? And the older you get, the more responsibilities you get. You start to realize money is a tool, and it's one of those things we're never taught, and also required for health and happiness. And I won't go into my background in health history, but maybe I'll give you a little 2-cent version. 2 cent? My brain's not even functioning properly.
Give us a taste.
Sure.
A little appetizer. So, former background as a social worker, which means no money, right? Being of service, giving your heart, doing it for free, essentially, and, just strip every part of you away. The impact-driven person inside of me is humongous, to the point and detriment of my health and previous version of me, to the detriment of my well-being. In 2013, I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. My husband was the breadwinner, air quotes. We were barely above water financially. I was taking calls because I also left my job as a social worker a year before I got diagnosed. And our youngest was a year old. I was in startup in my business, taking coaching calls from my hospital bed, one-on-one coaching calls, putting them on mute, puking in a bucket. And I thought, how did I get here? And I got there not because I was avoidant towards money. We were young at the time. It's because nobody looked me dead square in the eyes and they were like, honey, this is really, really important. You need to care about this. Our parents didn't do it, the generations before that. And so now when I'm teaching my boys, and our oldest is 20, I'm like, listen, you're going to hate me and we're going to talk about this. And you are going to learn these basic skills. So this is a very, very important conversation. So I'm just going to give the microphone to you guys. I want to know a little bit more about your story, what brought you to write the book, the title of the book, and all the things.
Well, thank you for sharing that piece of your story. We spent more than 2 years talking to couples about money. And I don't mean the numbers in their bank account. I mean these sensitive conversations, the feelings beneath the feelings. And, we came into the idea to write this book born from the experience in our own lives, which we share. We really go there, I would say. So a little background. You want to share a little about yourself, and I'll do me too.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. I'm Douglas Boneparth. I'm the president and founder of a wealth management firm called Bonafide Wealth out of New York City. I started my firm to focus exclusively on millennials at a time in our lives when nobody was really focusing on us. Think, post 2008 here. And I grew up the son of a certified financial planner, so I'm a second generation CFP. And we really do focus on that next generation investor from our generation all the way down.
So, okay, he's a financial professional. I am a recovering corporate lawyer. I'm Heather. I spent over a decade in the commercial insurance industry, and I really never intended to be that type of lawyer, but I graduated during the Great Recession and found a job, as many people do. Years later now, Doug and I work together at the firm, but I think there was a point there, and we share a lot about my money story. I mean, I took out 6 figures of student loan debt to go to law school, graduated with a boatload of shame and a lack of direction in my life. I'm an only child and grandchild on both sides of my family that experienced trauma as a child in a couple ways that we detail in the book. And I really grew up similar to you in the sense that I inherited a lot of money scripts and money stories, and they were conflicting. And so when I took those into my adult life and made these huge financial decisions, like taking out a boatload of student loan debt, I didn't know how to be in my 20s. And one thing I knew I didn't have was control. It was a complete emotional wave of indecision and paralysis at a point in my life. But what's interesting is, and we talk about this, that we thought we had it all figured out.
Yeah.
We fixed it. We refinanced my student loan debt. We put a down payment on a house. We had our first baby, and we're like, we got it all figured out. Like so many people think they do. But then what happened was life. Life happened.
It doesn't work.
We all kind of live our life from one unprecedented event to the next, right? You don't really know what tomorrow's going to bring. And so we found ourselves on the tail end of COVID in a power dynamic in our relationship where at one point I was the breadwinner. And then suddenly Doug's earning 3 times my salary because the firm had taken off. Thank goodness. We're very lucky and grateful to have that success. But I felt completely overloaded and drowning and invisible. And it felt to me like I had lost a lot of agency and belief in myself. I think a lot of women feel that way, particularly in the early years of motherhood, particularly when they are no longer the breadwinner or when they downshift from the workforce, or maybe just things happen in the workplace that cause you to not have the position of power that you once did. I think sometimes we confuse those two things and we don't really know whether they did it to us or we did it for ourselves. I mean, I'm one of those people. And so, we turned and looked at each other towards the end of COVID. And
I like the air quotes.
But you know what I mean? When
Pick a day.
When someone decided that it was time to be normal again. Yeah. And I turned to him and I said,
it's not working.
I don't love this feeling that I've been bottling up inside for the last couple of years. And I'm starting to have resentment for the situation that I'm in and that we're in, and something's got to change. And, that was the beginning. Those were the beginning thoughts of what ultimately became Money Together, which is a book all about how to have better conversations that go beneath the numbers, that really put you in a position to see so much more about your partner and to be sure that each of you can bring your individuality, your hopes, your dreams to your relationship and plan for both of you in the future in a way that's so much more sustainable, loving, equitable, all of the above. We wanted to help people do that because we thought, like, if we can't, how can anybody else? We've got a financial professional, we've got a legal professional who have always paid attention. And if we're getting it wrong, then something's wrong.
Yeah. If you're getting it wrong, how does the person without that education feel? Right. So Douglas, what was your experience like parallel to Heather's during that time?
Yeah, I give Heather a ton of credit. I give our relationship credit for just being able to sit me down, a very uncomfortable, not just moment, but in the time that followed, to have to navigate the discomfort because of the changes that we made. But I give Heather a ton of credit.
Change is hard.
Yeah.
Change is incredibly uncomfortable.
That's like one of the big themes here. We thought we had it all figured out and we wouldn't need to change. And, it just flies in the face of how life operates. Nothing's linear here. 2 steps backwards, 4 steps forward. Sometimes it's the other way around. So for me, I'm glad she was vocal. I'm glad we could sit down and talk about it. And I was viewing this from a couple directions. One, from our own experience and our own story, and also what I view and have seen in the profession, in my practice. And I was able to take what she was saying and look at our clients and look at people within the industry and start to see that this problem wasn't just, with us, wasn't just with our peers and individuals out there. It was actually a problem in the wealth management profession as well. There's a trend and an issue with large financial institutions of older clients, passing away. And we have another spouse that's in the dark. So I viewed it from that lens as well. But most of what we cover in the book has to do with the stories that we share, using our story really as a common thread or a single thread to bring all of these things together.
I would identify you, Heather, as like someone who has a voice. Like you're not afraid to speak up. Or like when I say that, what I mean is
That is accurate.
True.
yeah, you're like, that was such a lawyer thing saying that is accurate. I had to like fight like hell to feel alive. I tell people all the time, like you got to fight like hell to feel alive. You have to like take a stand. It takes a lot of courage to speak up. And you could still like suppress, resentment and all the things. And then one day stop and go, oh, wow. I'm like, we need to talk about this. And there's that personality type that's like, okay, let's have this conversation. And then there's the other side of the dynamic where, and I'm using she because I work primarily with women, will say, he won't listen to me. He's controlling. He's this. And I'm like, what have you said? And it's like, nothing. I just can't. I'm so scared. Right. So everyone has their coping strategy. And oftentimes, and I almost want to hear from you, Doug, that I will hear these things from women. And the reality is, he didn't say or do that at all. She is just absolutely terrified to speak her truth or use her voice. And then I'm like, okay, write it down, give him a letter, like say it. And there's this freezingness. And then he's met with like shame of like, I'm the man. I'm supposed to know how to handle all this shit. So I'm pretending that I know what the fuck I'm talking about, or I'm scared. So like, I want to hear from you and your perspective because I'm raising 3 boys.
Yeah.
I'm in a house of men. And I just don't think actually that men are given the microphone enough in this conversation.
That's the thing at the core of this entire book is giving you all the ways and tools to communicate, and Heather will tell you often what we observed in our interviews was what wasn't being said. Not
You're communicating even when you're not communicating. So all the women you're speaking of who are saying, oh, I could never possibly say anything. Well, you're already communicating. Your body language communicates, your actions, the way that you're passive aggressive about, you are communicating. You're just failing to say the thing that needs to be said.
100%. So, that's a big piece of the puzzle. If we're talking directly, around men and their attitudes, you're raising boys. We got a couple daughters here, so it's actually fun for me to, talk about this subject here. For guys particularly, I think a lot of what we've been fed, I'm a 90s kid, right? I think these classic tropes of, from generation to the generations before us, the man takes care of the finances, that we're responsible for all this. It's so easy to fall into these very, constructs that just do not serve us well today at all. I go back to the shows I would watch. And even today in the media that we consume socially, social media or otherwise, it's still there. We've come a long way, I think, relatively speaking. But if you go zoom out long enough, you will see that this kind of change is very slow to take place, right? And we can't make those changes. We can't call it out and say, this is not serving me, unless we find ways to open the door into these conversations.
I'd like to share an interesting story that we heard in interviews for the book. There was a woman who found out that she was pregnant in the middle of the night. And her husband was the one who handled all their finances and meticulously, like spreadsheet guy.
Very into it.
And he just spiraled.
In real time.
In the middle of the night, like peppering her. How are we going to afford this? We're going to daycare. You're going to leave your job. Blah, blah, blah. And he was panicked. And my initial reaction was like, what a jerk. What a jerk.
Yeah,
and then, you know what? One of the marriage therapists who we spoke with pointed out an incredibly good point that changed my perspective on this entire thing. She said, have you thought about how that moment was a massive, massive blow to his security? Because he is entirely responsible for handling their family finances. And maybe deep down, he wishes that he had a partner that was more involved in the day-to-day of that. Maybe that was just him projecting that he feels like he's all alone in that task. And it was such an interesting thing to hear somebody say, because I think, right, you get very caught in your own viewpoint of things.
I'll talk to that actually. It's just in terms of like what I see out of, our community of dads and guys that I belong to. And the good news is that most of them want their spouse involved. They don't know how to do it, but they want that, as opposed to what I see typically with older generations is that very like, no, this is what I'm going to do. This is my job. I don't want them involved in this. They want them there.
And isn't that such a good bringing back to your point, Heather, that maybe the issue is the way in which you're communicating between the two of you. He probably would love a teammate and partner that's engaged in your finances. He's not trying to pull one over on you in most cases.
That was one of the positive, when I described this discomfort that, I when we sat down and had to make these changes because change is hard. One of the things that I was holding on to as a massive positive was I get another set of eyes, not just to look, back onto the family finances, but we're in business together now. I'm not going to be alone. She's always been checking my six with decisions I make around the business, but now we're going to get to go into the P&L and talk about investments for the firm and get to a different layer and depth to our financial lives. That was something I was looking forward to and welcomed into our lives.
I just think that when you open up the door to teamwork, you never really know when you share responsibilities in a new way that you haven't before, whether we're talking about money, whether we're talking about driving the kids around, whether it's whatever, help, whatever it is, you open up room for each other to gain confidence, to step into completely different roles and opportunities for them and really take a load off of you and build what feels closer to an equitable partnership. Like it may be a secondary thing. Like money could just be the first thing. Then it opens up the door to so much more.
I'm like, yes. And we're learning and unlearning so much. Like the relationship dynamics are changing constantly. I talk a lot about parenting in my show and all the things. It's the same dynamic, right? He does it this way. She does it this way, blame, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, male and females, dad, mom, whatever, are actually supposed to parent differently. That was like such a huge thing of like the roles and all of that. And I think, women have I'm a woman, I'll say it, and a mother, a tendency to want to control and protect and nurture, and men do as well. And it shows up differently. And there's always shadow sides. There's always unhealthy sides of this. And the only way out is through, like having the emotionally uncomfortable conversation. I remember it's a complete dynamic shift between my husband and I. I remember the moment after cancer where we sat down with a financial person and we were like budgeting for the first time and like opening up the bank accounts. I was crying at the table and I watched my husband go like, he wasn't crying, but he was probably experiencing like shame of, fuck, I'm not as good at this that I thought I was. And it was a aha moment to me where I was like, oh my God, this story, like I was watching myself in this story and identity of like, this Prince Charming is not going to rescue me. And then when I started being like, I want to be the front runner of this, the visionary, like I'm going to push this business. I'm going to go for it. He was like, I'm totally fine to be like the back support. Yeah. And so complete money shift and the anger and resentment that I went through and what the story you were just telling about, the dynamic and when they got pregnant, I was like, I can identify with some of the male breadwinner energy because that is the burden I carry now. I say burden or responsibility. And it's fascinating to watch all of these stories we tell ourselves. And we're both fucking stressed out for different reasons. And it's like, let's come together, talk about what's stressing you out about this versus what's stressing you out, whether it's parenting, money, health, all the things. It's like, we're just not listening to each other.
Right. Well, one of the important things that I like for couples to understand, and again, this goes for money, this goes for career, time, whatever. It's that an investment in one thing becomes a sacrifice in another all the time. And so especially between the two of you, whether we're talking about career, like, yes, we invested in Doug's career by me taking like a steady corporate boring job that didn't fulfill me, that I didn't like for a long time. And an investment in him was a sacrifice. There were moments where I would have loved to go for the cool new thing. I would have loved to take a risk and join a startup and whatever. That wasn't where our lives were at that time. But then now, look, the coin flips over, right? Because then now we've invested in me. I spent 2 years. We forgoed my corporate salary and benefits, which was insane. And with the cost of healthcare and everything today, for me to join the firm, but it was an investment in me. But that was an inherent sacrifice that we had to make. Just acknowledging the fact that what we choose to do for you will always have some inherent impact on me. Just acknowledging that we are tethered together in that way. Even that in itself makes people feel seen and creates those moments to check in and say, hey, are you good? Are you getting what you need out of this?
That's how you ultimately get to her win being my win and my win being her win.
Yeah.
The collective ambition needs to come to life here because you share a life together. Not, you're not doing we do a lot of stuff together. It's obnoxious, but you still get to be your own person. But you're playing a team game. Championships are won through team efforts. This is what collaboration is all about. Your marriage is essentially a collaboration of life. And money is this game that you don't get to opt out of. So you got to play it. We got to learn to play this.
Yeah. It's fascinating to watch like money stories. So like if something grows and then, my husband and I are very team-ish when it comes to this now, like he's like into the books and stuff in the business. And so when he sees things rise and I can tell he's triggered or something, I go, nip that shit. I'm like, we can talk about that after. It just needs to get paid. Let's go. We'll talk about like what the shit is coming up here. But we couldn't get to this dynamic unless, we went through all the shitty growth opportunities and growth seasons. And that's, you're talking about teams and sports and all the things. It's like, you gotta be in it. Like the podcast called Emotionally Uncomfortable is not just like feel your feelings all the time. It's, you're putting in the reps. You are like at your growth edge.
We're doing the yes, yes, yes now.
Oh my God. And it is emotionally, on the other side though, freedom is emotionally uncomfortable. Like when you're like, we're good. Like we're in a good season and how good can it get? It's like, hold on to that when all your friends are struggling and you're like, I'm so grateful that we can work together this much and not want a divorce today.
Yeah. No, you know what? So a question that we asked every single couple that we interviewed for this book was whether they have enough.
And we
didn't say enough money.
They would
ask. We just said enough. And interpret it the way you'd like. And we want you both to answer separately. And I think that we learned a lot. I am very, very humbled by having heard people from all walks of life answer that question. And it just made me think of that when you said, like, look around at what we get to do together.
That was a big thing.
And for us, like, I think Doug was already so close to his enough because of all we had two beautiful daughters. We have our health. We have this firm that he's been growing.
She gave me 13 years to build, a way here.
But I was so far from being able to honestly turn to him and say, it's enough. I'm an ambitious person that never got to pursue something that I was passionate about. I got kind of like roped into this corporate structure that really did amazing things for my family. I don't regret it. I liked it. In many days I woke up and I liked it.
But no question that was not.
It was never going to be enough. Never, not for me.
Oh, it's never enough for us. When you have that ambition, visionary bug, and your name is Heather, you are screwed. If you are not challenging yourself constantly, it feels like death is knocking on the door. I'm sorry.
What I am going to be very interested in seeing with this Heather is, it's a slippery slope or a double-edged sword here, right?
Right.
Yes. What was happening was not enough, and the power dynamic needed to change, and we needed to grow in a different way. But you also need to be cognizant of still answering the question. then so Heather, how will you know when you get to your enough? And that in lies, this very circular reference that happens here. And this is why it's so important that as you go from season to season in your life, that you continue to have a practice around what we're talking about here. So you can afford yourself the opportunity for those check-ins and the ability to catch yourself. Like, Heather, look at all that you've done. You're still reaching. And you can say, oh my goodness, like I'm losing the plot again. Let's re-examine what's going on here.
Yeah. It's, I call it energetic. Well, I do something called energetic time management. And I'm like, it's not the thing you want, it's the feeling. So you say you want more money, you want like more accolades, you want another book, you want this. Amazing. Take it. What's the feeling you're after? And if you don't infuse that feeling into your everyday life. So now when I have goals, I'm like, I know the goal, the physical external validation or the physical thing. It's the journey of becoming. What is it required of me? What's the soul growth required of who I become to get there? And when my head is in alignment with that, there's so much meaning and fulfillment. And I'm like, oh, yes. Like, I don't actually care about the end thing because I'm going to hit it and be like, that wasn't it. So it's like, where are we putting our value, right? Are we putting it on money or are we putting it on connection? Like with the actual person we want to build a life with?
No, you're absolutely right, because the truth is that none of us really know, right? You can have a goal down the road. There are 100 different ways to get to that goal. There's painful ways to get there. There's resentful ways. There's ways where you lose a lot in the process. We want you to value the journey as much as value the end.
All right. I want to ask this one question that I know people are thinking. The answer may be in your book and they're going to go get the book because I'm like, I feel like it's going to be one of those things you read over and over and over again and you gift people. And also when you were like, I'm not going to feel shame experience, or like I'm behind. It's going to be like one of those things. Oh, we're in a sticky season again. Let's open the book.
That's right.
What does one do when they're like, I have now had these money conversations, which is something I advocate for, is like a weekly money date time. We're going to talk about this. We're going to look at it. And the male counterpart, because it's women who are listening to this, will not show up to that conversation.
Well, there's a couple things at play here. I'll get started and then you can chime in.
Go for it.
So there's nothing wrong with having a weekly conversation about money. From our standpoint, what we recommend is we set it at every quarter, not every week. For the reason that for some people, especially when this is really hard at the beginning, when there's resistance from one person, it's a lot easier to cancel week to week than it is to say once every quarter, this is the date. This has been set in stone on our calendar, and you're saving your thoughts. You've got time to marinate between the two big conversations, and you've got time to really see meaningful progress from the last time you've done it. So like from a technical standpoint, I want to point that out. There's a reason that we only suggest, hey, from a benchmark standpoint, if you do this every quarter and you commit to that, it might result when you get good at it. It might result in you guys wanting to sit down every week, and that's amazing. But for couples who are just getting into this, we don't want this to feel like a chore, like you're taking out the recycling on Friday morning. This is supposed to be a positive conversation that brings in a lot more than just your money from our standpoint. So we want it to be something you can look forward to and have the time to like emotionally prepare for it. Because I think some of what people shy away from is that it's like, this is going to be this emotionally heavy thing that we're going to do, and I don't want to do it at the end of my week. I think that's some of it. But when you see someone who is constantly refusing to evolve, constantly refusing to collaborate, isn't willing to elaborate on the reasons why, you've got a problem.
Yeah, that's right.
What are they hiding?
Yeah.
Or what are they hiding? What do they not want to reveal? And I don't just mean like a lie in their finances, but why are they so closed off from sharing with you this piece of their life Because when we talk about money and we talk about what it means to have a money date, it's not just your budget. We're talking about your time, your goals, how you're both feeling about what you've been doing, like what's going well in your life.
Celebrating wins.
Celebrating
So being
wins.
critical.
So to avoid that conversation, that's really problematic to me, right? Like when you frame it through a wider lens like that.
If let's just focus on goals for a second. We have joint goals. I would hope that every couple has joint goals, whether it's for yourselves or your children, financial independence, their education. If you're telling me someone is unwilling to talk about the things that hopefully drive and motivate you and make life worth living, these big ticket items, to Heather's point, you have a problem on your hands, right? There is something blocking that individual from getting there. And we're big believers. Like we're not moonlighting as the marriage counselors or financial therapists, but we talk to enough of them to know about the type of work that they do. And as a professional, I know when I'm out of my depth, I have an obligation to say, hey, look, this is where I think another professional can come in mind, or it should step into play here.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why when we did approach, how do we constructively get people to actually do this?
Yeah.
We set the ramp. We made it a very, very flat ramp, not a very steep ramp, because there's already so many emotions, charged fears in engaging in these conversations. That's why we say, maybe you're just not approaching it correctly. And maybe by doing it too often or bringing it up at a time and place that is really not conducive to like healthy, constructive conversations. That's what people are afraid of. They're afraid of fighting again.
Yeah. Emotionally uncomfortable conversations. Yeah. We need to have them probably way more than we think we do. And it's not about conflict. It's just about connection and having a human to human conversation. Vulnerability, intimacy, all the things. It's all connected. It's like these external buckets of our lives will return us home to ourselves, and they will show us where we are not yet free. I want to ask you both one last question and just kind of maybe like a quick liner, the first thing that comes to mind, knowing that you have girls and children and, this mission that you're on. What is the legacy you want to leave for your kids? How do you want to be remembered?
I want them to know that they are loved without any conditions. And I want them to love people the same.
I want them to be fearless when it comes to pursuing the things that matter to them, the things that will fulfill them in life. I want them to take that risk.
I love that. And those two answers had nothing to necessarily do with money. But
that's right.
You definitely need it as a tool to get there. So I want to say thank you to both of you. Tell them like your book, where they find it, where they get more of you, all the things.
Our book is called Money Together: How to Find Fairness in Your Relationship and Become an Unstoppable Financial Team. You can find us at domoneytogether.com. We also write a weekly newsletter all about couples and money. And that's at The Joint Account, which you can find at readthejointaccount.com. Firm Bonafide Wealth with an E. And also you can find us on social. I'm at Average Joel and he's at Doug Boneparth, wherever you want to look for us.
All over.
I love it. And we will link all those. Thank you for being you, so honest and open and showing up as you are. And the courage to just go after this. It takes a lot of courage to pursue and not give up. So thank you.
Thank you, Other Heather.
Yes, lots of Heathers today.
Other Heather. I like it.